Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we are here live at the World Trade Center. We're going to be talking about everything that is terpenes. We are here with some awesome guests, and so let's just kind of get right into the bios here. First off is David Heldreth with True Terpene. Next up is Dr. Alison Draisin. She's representing Terpestival and CASP. And remotely, we have Kayla Hall with Cannabinder.
And also remotely is Hunter Holliman with Forefront Ventures.
And then we have Nicole Wicker of Altopa. Nicole is the CEO and founder of Altopa, maker of the Oblend. And we are at the World Trade Center. It's a little shout out to them. The World Trade Center grows trade and investment by providing direct access to the largest business network in the world with 300 offices in 99 countries. The World Trade Center Tacoma is the lone trade service for the Pacific Northwest. Their seminars, award ceremonies, and conferences can generate contacts and contracts. Trade research can clarify opportunities, and their matchmaking can turn those opportunities into trade. Personally, I get peace of mind with international purchase orders from bank guarantees and international letters of credit. I also like the e-commerce export store, which is partnered with Alibaba. It's translated to 18 languages and gives you an opportunity to put your products online and get them overseas to hard-to-reach places like Asia. So this is a cannabis business podcast. Let's dive into an interesting topic on how an individual company is losing money. I'm going to let you guys kind of dive into this because I know everybody's got something to say. There's a lawsuit last year that alleged that LaCroix beverage contained artificial ingredients contrary to the company's all-natural marketing claims. LaCroix has denied the claims in the suit. And according to CNBC, the company's revenue dropped 3%, its profit dwindled 40%, and their shares dipped 16%. And this was the first decline in quarterly sales in 5 years. So LaCroix is, quote, effectively in a free fall, with sales declining 9.4% over the last 12 weeks, according to an analyst at Guggenheim Securities. She goes on to say, quote, the LaCroix brand has gone from bad to worse to disastrous in a relatively short period of time, end quote. So the lawsuit explicitly names 3 terpenes as the dangerous chemicals involved: limonene, which can cause kidney toxicity and tumors; linalool propionate, which is used to treat cancer; linalool, which is used in cockroach insecticide. And so in addition to talking about this, I'd also like to know from each one of you guys what advice you can give to companies in emerging cannabis markets on how to prepare for a volatile regulatory environment.
First, I have to add, I actually just read an article about this, that LaCroix, their sales have diminished because there are actually a lot more sparkling waters on the market.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And also Amazon, everyone is moving into space.
Amazon, and Bubbly,
Pepsi.
And so Pepsi has Bubbly.
Oh,
There's so many more sparkling waters, so let's just be mindful that that has a large amount to do with why their sales have decreased, that there are other maybe more popular, more tasty items that are on the market. However, those particular sparkling waters, I believe that they're also using forms of terpenes, whether it's strawberry has terpenes, the limonene and the lime, it's all still terpenes. And I actually recognized that LaCroix was using terpenes early on, which is why I've supported them, because I've enjoyed using true terpenes in my beverages for the past, as long as Ben's been around. And so that's my 2 cents.
I guess also to talk about whether or not these things are safe, like we were talking about earlier in the dosages, and again, they fall within the FEMA guidelines for generally regarded as safe, and so, again, they're also, again, do we drink strawberry juice? Do we drink apple juice? Do we drink grape juice? Like, there's more terpenes in those drinks than there are in this LaCroix. That's why it's so light of a taste. And so it is I think what's actually catching them with a lawsuit is the natural portion of the labeling. And my understanding is that recently, so there's what's known as a carbon isotope testing. And so carbon degrades at a reliable rate. That's how we test ancient artifacts to tell how old they are. The flip side of that is that when something is synthetic, it's being made with petroleum. Well, petroleum is ancient because it's old carbon from fossils that are broken, from organic matter that's broken down to become hydrocarbons, which are petroleum. So because of that, the carbon in those atoms has a different age than the carbon that's in natural atoms that are produced by plants. So when you get a terpene, you can't with a mass spectrometry or gas chromatography tell whether a compound is natural, organic, or synthetic. However, using carbon isotope testing, you can tell if a terpene is natural or synthetic, and that I believe that I've heard that they have had that evidence submitted to court that shows that they had at least some synthetic compounds from that isotope testing in their items. But the flip side is was their supply chain being tainted by their suppliers? Did they do this knowingly? Who even knows that outside of me and 5 people that you can isotope these things and test it and tell that they're natural and synthetic? Was this intentional on their part? Who knows? Will we ever know? Sorry.
And is there any proof that synthetic linalool is harmful? And, what is the definition of natural? Is when you add something.
The FDA is having a hearing on that over the next 2 years.
Well, there's certain drinks that actually use parts of the beaver.
Oh, yes.
Is that natural? I mean, people should be more upset about, and I think it's a really unsavory part of the beaver that they're using, and so I would be
You're
more
correct.
upset about beaver stuff in my
It's
beverage.
vanilla, correct?
Sometimes, isn't it?
I thought it was a vanilla taste. Is what that?
Isn't it the beaver?
Yes, scent gland.
Yes, the butt gland. I was going to say it's, but it's that to me is grosser than a little bit of linalool or a little bit of lemonade. And and I actually I've done some research on whether like the synthetics, like you had mentioned before, the synthetics, they're just compounds and it's the exact same as plant derived and cannabis derived. And so people who create synthetics in the lab will argue to the nth degree that it's the same. It's all connected carbons.
Again, going back to which terpenes are most effective. Cannabis-derived terpene, plant-derived terpenes, or synthetic-derived terpenes. You have many companies, many cannabis companies out there creating synthetic cannabinoids. So we talked about THC and CBD.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are over 100 cannabinoids, and we have proven that many of these are very effective in different ways, such as THC stimulates your appetite, but THCV reduces your appetite. THCV is very uncommon. It's hard to get your hands on, so it's very, very expensive. What if we could create these products synthetically, and then you're providing medicine to people who need it at a much lower cost, if it's not...
Well, it's like, look at Marinol. Marinol is a synthetic cannabinoid product, and the cancer patients that I've worked with absolutely detest Marinol. They found that it made them nauseous and sick, and so they turned to the actual plant, where they found relief. So I'm not a fan of this synthetic cannabinoids, and truthfully, even terpenes.
But what is Marinol carried in? If they just had pure distillate THC instead of a full cannabis plant extract, would they have the same reaction they had on the Marinol, though? So again, where it's not the THC source, it's the if they had synthetic THC with synthetic terpene or natural terpenes, or I think it's more of all the compounds as a whole interacting, and when you start removing pieces, like you might get some benefit for cancer killing or nausea or big individual pieces, but you start getting the side effects. It's like basically we're taking like the whole thing that prevents all the side effects and has the medicine with cannabis as a whole, and then where's the piece that's like Jenga? We don't know.
Well, but the pharmaceutical industry, it's built on isolates. And so when you have an industry that's built on isolates, and then you have this cannabis plant, which is really more beneficial as whole plant medicine, there are people who are very confused, especially doctors, because they are used to medicine being in an isolate form, and now we're having to almost retrain them. I work with doctors all the time who really have no understanding of how, unless they're naturopathic doctors tend to have a greater understanding because they tend to use more whole plant medicine. But medical doctors who have no training in cannabis don't understand the synthesis of the entire plant and the importance of it in medicine, because they go for isolates.
Well, and I believe that when you're taking the whole plant, you have hundreds of different cannabinoids and terpenes. So they're doing some advanced studies in Israel, like Dr. Didi Mary, and he's finding all of the cannabinoids and all of the terpenes, and he's trying to eliminate one here and one there, and then maybe a very, very rare cannabinoid or very rare low dosage of a terpene is the one thing that you need to add to the other top 10 ingredients to make it effective. You know, that's what they're doing in Israel. So I do believe that one day we will be able to isolate these and create medicine with cannabis.
You know, it's not, we can see this volatility. The LaCroix thing is a perfect example. It's not just the cannabis markets that are, you know, having to deal with the ambiguity around certain regulatory actions or distribution schemes. So, you know, this question is obviously referring to a lawsuit by Belmont Costalis this past October, which alleges that LaCroix's all-natural claims are false due to the brand using non-natural flavorings and synthetic compounds. That's the allegation. Belmont Costalis, who is the person suing LaCroix, again, you know, focused on 3 terpenes, as you mentioned, linalool, limonene, and lionel propitiate. All 3 can be found in plenty of naturally occurring compounds, yet one in particular, as you said, linalool, serves as a standout point for detractors on this case. Again, because if you use a lot of it, it might kill cockroaches. So while it's certainly true that linalool does act as a pesticide in some instances, we know that that is not the case for humans. The FDA definition of the label natural, you know, getting back into this kind of ambiguous regulatory place, natural is not vigorously defined by the FDA, and there isn't a regulatory definition of it either. Rather, there's a consumer idea of what natural is or feels like, and even the FDA notes this on its own website, that it is not engaged in rulemaking to establish the formal definition of the term natural. Rather, the regulatory agency considers that in order for a product to be natural, nothing artificial or synthetic, including all color additives, regardless of source, has been included in or has been added to a food that would not normally be expected to be in that food. So, you know, you can read that FDA gibberish a few different ways. They're basically kicking the can down towards popular opinion and not really putting clarity around what the term natural is, which opens the door for, you know, really just silly lawsuits like this. Mm-hmm. I've been in the cannabis industry since 2002 when I moved to San Francisco for undergrad. I've seen a lot of emerging markets struggle with this type of ambiguity, as well as what we would consider mature markets experiencing the same issues. My suggestion is to have a very strong compliance department in-house that you can throw questions at. You know, an example of this is California Prop 65 warnings. You know, there's even a lot of guidance from some industry groups around whether you have to represent Prop 65 warnings on your cannabis products just because they have terpenes on them. So, you know, we can also look towards other industry groups or trade associations that might be offering white papers or some guidance as to how to fill in this ambiguity and avoid the volatile, potentially volatile regulatory environment. You know, at the end of the day, my advice is hedge your liability in any way possible through a competent compliance department and by asking your regulatory body. A lot of times you won't get a written response. You might just get a verbal response because clarifying some of these things, the interpretation will change depending on your auditor, who you're talking to, the inspector. You know, a lot of times government agencies don't want to provide clarity, and you should be ready for that. You know, instances like the LaCroix lawsuit will always pop up and are unavoidable. And this is an example that's not even in the cannabis industry, right? But the silver lining is that in the absence of clear statute, this ambiguity is often resolved through litigation and case law, which is exactly what we're seeing right here with LaCroix. So with a bit of luck, you can hedge your liability and try and avoid such drama. But again, it always helps to have a competent legal team or compliance team behind you that can help you interpret some of these regulatory ambiguities that result in volatility.
So I want to thank everybody for being here today, and appreciate you being on the podcast, The Talking Hedge. I'd like to thank my guest, Nicole. She's with the Oblend, or Altopa, maker of the Oblend. I'd like to thank Alison. She's representing CASP and the Terpestival. I want to thank David. He is here with True Terpenes.
I also want to thank my guest, Hunter Holliman with Forefront Ventures.
And Kayla is here representing the Cannastamp and Cannabinder.
Thanks, Josh.
And we're going to wrap this up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is a Talking Hedge, your cannabis business podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.